Madam Clerk, I move that the House stands adjourned until noon tomorrow.
The question is on the motion that the House stands adjourned until noon tomorrow. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
There will be, the motion to adjourn will pass by 219 to 213. So the House will adjourn until tomorrow at noon. Let's listen in.
The nays are 213. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until noon tomorrow.
Thursday evening in the House of Representatives, they've adjourned until noon tomorrow. That's Friday. That's right now. It's 9 a.m. in Los Angeles. That means they've just gotten back into the chambers. Let's see where they're going with that. As it's been the past few days, I've asked you guys to make sure you update me. Let me know what's going on, who's being nominated, maybe who has won. It might just all break down. As they adjourn, they're talking about more. But during that day, during the fighting back and forth, mostly between, there's this wing of 20, holdouts for Kevin McCarthy from the Republican side. There was negotiating happening, they said. Every time between each vote, there was negotiations. They went through 11 votes overall so far over these days. But when it comes to those negotiations, one particular holdout, Representative Scott Perry, disagreed that any of these negotiations are happening. What the hell are you talking about? Let's listen to him.
Reported concessions to the House Freedom Caucus, 1-member threshold on the motion to vacate the chair, 2 seats for the Freedom Caucus and the House Rules Committee and other committees, a vote at least on term limits and standalone votes on 12 individual appropriations bills. Is there a deal done at this point, Congressman-elect?
Well, thanks for asking. First of all, there is no agreement whatsoever, and it's disappointing that that confidences are betrayed about the details of internal meetings, and it exemplifies Washington D.C. and the trust factor that is causing the impasse that is occurring right before your eyes. There's a trust issue with the gentleman who wants to be Speaker.
Understand what's being said there. First, he said there's no negotiations happening. Those things that people are reporting have been conceded to by Kevin McCarthy. He said none of that's happening. I'm upset you guys are even leaking these things. What the hell is wrong with you? This is the problem in Congress. So what is it he has a problem with? He has a trust factor for Kevin McCarthy. So just to say it, they kind of hint it every once in a while and say that it's based off of some concessions and things they want changes in rules. Fine, actually. I think maybe even some of those rules could be useful for them doing things more transparently. Yeah, I said that. But there's other part about this. There are people who are loyalists to Kevin McCarthy, and this is where the fight then goes. He's got like 200 votes still every time on this. One of those folks was talking about whether or not if too many concessions actually do happen, what he'll say. It's getting real dicey for Kevin. He's trying to split between both of these sides. Here's what a loyalist said.
Is there anything that Kevin McCarthy could give up in these negotiations that would make you give up your support of him? Is there a bridge too far?
There actually is. And honestly, there's many of us who feel like we're very, very close to that at this point. But you know, more than that is I think some of these individuals are running out of things to ask for. I mean, they really have been given. It's not just the 2 or 3 things I've mentioned. There's a list of probably 30 to 38 rules, changes, and other things that they were proponents of. And by the way, so were others of us. There were ideas that many of us supported. But at a certain point, you just run out of a wish list. And I think we're getting close to that. And then if you go beyond that, you really would reach a point where members of the rest of us would say, look, there's 200 of us that support Kevin. There's a couple dozen or less who don't. We're not going to be ruled by them. And I think we're nearing that threshold now where 2 things. There's only so much you can ask for, and I think we've reached that. And then the second thing is if you go beyond that, you're going to be able to begin to lose support of the other 200.
Oh, damn, Kevin, this is going really badly. Now, if he continues to concede to the holdouts, the loyalists just might start peeling off as well. But what will they do? First, really fast, I'm gonna go through some of those concessions because they did mention some there, but just what he has said openly that he's conceding to. Other stuff maybe behind the closed doors we haven't heard about could be even further, really fast. So the offer McCarthy made to conservatives on Wednesday night includes items many in his conferences once viewed as red lines, as we heard there. It would, according to 2 Republicans familiar with that proposal, include a vote on term limits for members, cool. More seats for Freedom Caucus members on the powerful House Rules Committee, of course, and allowing a single member to force a vote on ousting the speaker. So one guy can stand up and say, I don't like you today, Kevin. Get the hell out. Let's have a vote on it. And they can do that maybe every day. And maybe they can get his ass out after he agrees to all this. That last item is a particularly steep climb down for McCarthy, essentially guaranteeing that if he does land the gavel, it's never fully safe. Lastly here, additionally though, the Conservative Club for Growth agreed, this is one other concession, to back McCarthy's speaker bid pending this deal. It came after McCarthy-aligned Congressional Leadership Fund reached a deal with the Club for Growth, which had initially signaled opposition to him, to stay out of open House primaries for safe Republican seats. So if they nominate all these crazed MAGA type folks that the Republican Party, maybe McCarthy's wing of the party, doesn't think can win in a general election, he has to stay the hell out of it as the leader of the Republicans in the House. Isn't that crazy? Here's another side that's going though. Here's more pressure on Kevin McCarthy, reasons why he's probably sweating right now. We'll see what's happening in the chamber today. But there's another person that's loyal to Kevin McCarthy who may not be so upset, but he's looking for other outlets to get those votes. Here's where it really gets dicey. Watch that.
This is what I am advocating, and others are as well, not just me. If these 20 refuse to be part of the team and don't come on board, we have no other choice but to go across the aisle and start negotiating. And there's a lot of things you can negotiate. Committee ratios is a big one, because ordinarily you get like a 4-seat majority in a tight House like this. Maybe we get it to a 2-seat majority instead of 4 in all these committees. There may be things we can negotiate on subpoenas. There's also on rules, like how to do motions to recommit. There's a lot of things that we could look at to see if we can come up with a more bipartisan House. And by the way, we need to do that. If you think we can get past totally partisan bills out of the US House, and that a Democrat Senate is going to pass them with a filibuster and get it to the president and get his signature, it's not going to work. In the end, to get things done, you're going to have Democrats on board anyway.
Maybe the whole part about this whole thing that these holdouts are doing is they might get some bipartisanship, share some of that power with Democrats in order to get their votes. Last thing here, Ben, I know I've talked for a very long time, but Representative Perry, who we started with from the top here, he had a response to that potential proposal to get some Democrats on board by conceding to them. You might not be surprised at his response. Watch that.
McCarthy as speaker, and I know this is a hypothetical, were to cut a deal with Democrats instead of cutting one with the House Freedom Caucus, how would you react, particularly if there is a 1-member threshold for a motion to vacate the chair?
Well, I think, quite honestly, forget how I would react. I bet the other Republicans in the room would not appreciate that very much either. No one appreciates being betrayed, not just the members of the Freedom Caucus. Any Republican would take that as an act of combat.
An act of combat? What the hell does that mean? These 55, 60, 70, 80-year-old folks gonna start fighting on the floor? Ben, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to this. And it's like, I mean, first and foremost, it's funny, right? This is deeply, deeply hilarious because this is their own fault. This is literally all the Republicans' own fault. Just their shameless pursuit of power, and just like they're pushing like ridiculous right-wing conspiracy theories. That is what brought the Republican Party to this point, because they are running around passing out this Kool-Aid, hoping that people will drink it in order to get elected so they can support giant corporations. Except they didn't expect so many Kool-Aid drinkers to get themselves elected, right? And they're like, whoa, you actually believe all this stuff? No, you don't understand all the free markets and all these other things. That's just a mythology that we use to like justify giving tax breaks to rich people and doing corporate bailouts. Like, we don't actually think that the market should be free. We don't actually think we should do all these things. And then another layer goes into just the history of the United States, which I think is really important to understand, especially in the context of where the Republican Party is right now. Because the United States, in a lot of ways, has like fully adopted the ideology of fascism, right? Where you just have corporations kind of like being the centerpiece of how the government is organized, and you use like a combination of like white supremacist violence, a police state, and all these things to basically maintain the system of profits. And you see, the thing is, we have a lot of pretense, right, in the United States. There's pretense, like so for Richard Nixon, when he uses the war on drugs to, jail political opponents, right, targeting predominantly black and brown folks across the country, he had to create pretense, and that's the war on drugs. And he's like, okay, we're just gonna do this. These Republicans, these like 20 Republicans, they're just like, we're done with the pretense. We can't, we're just done with the pretense. But they don't realize that that pretense is the only thing that allows the Republicans to have any seats whatsoever. Because fundamentally, their ideas are unpopular. Their policies are unpopular. And in the system that we have, as limited as the democracy is, fundamentally, Republicans would never win a seat if they all just completely got rid of the pretense that is used to sort of maintain our white supremacist system. And so fundamentally, that's the conflict that we're seeing, where this group of Republicans, these holdouts, they don't understand how the system is supposed to work, right? They know, they fully believe in the same white supremacy as the other Republicans, but they're not sophisticated enough to understand that in order for the game to work, it has to have a little bit of pretense and subtlety and dog whistling, and they're just done with it. They're done with the dog whistles. And
we call that, I guess that's the Trump effect to a degree, because he shed all of those veils, all those masks, and said straight up from the first moment he went down the escalator, yeah, yo, this is about to be a racist administration. And they're like, I guess. And now the folks that still think that's gonna work, it's working to a degree. And by the way, who knows what may change? Maybe they might accidentally get something where there's more transparency throughout this whole process for the sake of someone finally getting their gavel and their power.